I met Carlos about 20 years ago at a tiny little church conference when I first moved to New York City. At the time, Carlos was a worship pastor, but since then he's done all sorts of, oh my goodness, that is bad news. A power line just fell down onto a car. Is everyone okay? That was insane. You truly never know what's going to happen in New York City. As I was saying, I'm so excited because today I get to talk with Carlos Whittaker. Now, I met Carlos 20 years ago at a small church conference in Tennessee because at the time, Carlos was a worship pastor. Now, if you follow me and listen to my podcast or watch my YouTube channel or check me out on Instagram, which you totally should, you know that I love to talk about everything. I love to talk about being a dad, being a New Yorker, and living in this city. I love to talk about content creation and review tech, and I work full-time at a church as a worship pastor. So me and Carlos have that, or I should say, had that in common. Since that conference 20 years ago, Carlos has moved on to do all sorts of amazing things. Yes, he was in the Christian music industry and was a songwriter and released albums and went on tour. And now he goes on tour speaking all over the world. He's written some amazing books that have spoken directly to me and changed my life. He's also been someone who, through his Instagram account and through his speaking engagements, has talked all about racism and talked all about social justice and shared with us how to be regular humans in a world that, let's be honest, can be super tough at times. Needless to say, Carlos has experienced a lot of life, which is why I'm so excited that we get to have this conversation with him today. Don't forget that all the links you need are down in the description. Thanks for being here. Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody, to the podcast. I am here with a guy I met a long time ago. I'm here with the famous Carlos Whittaker. How are you, sir?
I am so good. I don't know about famous, but I'm good, and I'm so grateful that we met a long time ago. I remember, and I don't know if this was like the moment we met or maybe later in the evening after we met, but I remember sitting in a hotel lobby, drinking a scotch with you. I think
Jameson.
Yes, that's what it was. You were the first one that ever introduced me to this, and I did that. That had to have been, no lie, I mean, that had to have been almost 20 years ago, maybe 18. Yeah, yeah, crazy.
I had just moved to New York City.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were at this tiny little conference. And I actually remember that so clearly. I remember you turning and saying, "What do you get?" And I said, "I think I'm going to get James." And you said, "I'm getting that too."
Yes.
Bonded, kindred forever since then.
Boom. And you know, it felt like somebody shoved a clump of moss in my mouth. But my taste for it just continued to advance. And now I appreciate all the finer things because of you, Patrick.
Well, listen, I hear that. And my wife just signed me up for, I forget what it's called. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. My wife for Christmas signed me up for one of those like box in the mail services called Shaker and Spoon.
Oh,
and, wow. I just got a box of like, you know, it gives you the ingredients to make a great cocktail. And yes. I mean, you know, I've also, my palate has advanced over the years. I'm much older, much wiser. But listen, speaking of our story, I would love to start by talking about yours really quickly.
Okay.
Because I just listened to, I love Tim Whittaker's podcast, The New Evangelicals. I had him on a few months back. And my first question to him was, which is right, Whittaker with 2 T's or 1 T? He disagreed with you. Right. But yes, I listened to your episode. I listened to your episode with him where you laid out, I mean, you have such a unique story. And I have so much I want to ask you about your story. So I'm going to make a terrible podcast host move. Do you mind if I just kind of recap your story quickly?
Let's go.
And ask you some questions about it. And when I get something wrong, tell me. But I'm going to just say, if you want to hear the Carlos Whittaker story, go to the New Evangelicals. It was incredible. And here are the bullet points if you don't mind.
Okay, I don't at all.
Okay, you ready? Here we go. So you grew up a preacher's kid.
Did.
Born into LA. Yep. You move to the South. You immediately start to experience, in a word, racism. You're starting to see some differences in people. You begin to grow a little bit of resentment. And in your interview with Tim, you agreed with his summary that this is kind of the portion of your story where you were experiencing all this while also learning to assimilate to culture. You were experiencing some color blindness, but you still, you still hang on to your faith. And huge fast forward, you eventually begin working at a church. You join a worship team, which I'm a worship pastor in New York City. So, I mean, and when I met you, you were a worship pastor. You lead the song Worlds Apart by Jars of Clay.
I did.
And then right in the middle of it, you decide, hey, I'm going to share like an encouraging word. It blows everybody's minds because this is before worship was the huge industry that it is.
Yeah.
You eventually become a pastor at a church. You're working at a church. You get married. You have an adoption story with your son. You're having kids. Now, this is where we met and your life was changed. This is the most pinnacle part of your story. You then eventually work at North Point, and this is where you started to describe yourself as a bit of an outsider. Yeah. And the way you described it was, in your story, you said, I was the first one to wear jeans on staff.
Yes.
Which is like the smallest version of outsider ever, but I get it, having worked in churches my whole life.
Yes.
Naturally, you eventually move to Nashville. This is when you get into your music phase of signing with Integrity Music. You're on tour, and I hate that you phrased it this way, but this is what you said. It's so beautiful. You said, you basically were preparing yourself to be you said, quote, the next failure of a CCM artist.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's incredible. It's so hard, and it's incredible, but that's so hard to hear. Okay, you also call this, bit of a turn, you call this one of the darkest seasons of your life.
Yep.
You walk away from the music industry, and you're contracted to lead at all of these churches, and this is the most interesting thing, the most interesting part of the most interesting story I've ever heard.
Yes.
You decide to walk away from music. You say, God's spoken to me. I'm going to be a speaker. So many people have told me I'm better at speaking than singing. Right. You're signing a book deal. You cancel all of your worship gigs. No one wants to hire you to speak.
Nobody.
Until the White House emails you.
Yes. The White House.
To sum this up, you show up at the Obama White House to lead a devotion and a song or two.
Yes.
You're then invited by the president for a private conversation.
Yes.
He's walking in. Your whole life, your dad has encouraged you, saying, one day, son, you will meet the president.
Absolutely.
You share this with the president, and he says, let's call him.
Let's call him, Carlos.
30 years ago, it's the same hope that we see. Oh, precious church. Oh, precious is the Lord. Right.
I can't put myself in that place. Can you just, before I finish this, can you just quickly describe what was it? Could you even dial? Like, could you even, could you even hold the phone?
Yeah, luckily it was, so we weren't even allowed to have our phones. So that was the first thing, is like you couldn't take them out. So I had it, but in my pocket, and we weren't allowed to take the phones out because, they don't want us taking photos that the president doesn't want, or yada, yada. And so I had turned it off. Like I didn't want it ringing. Back then there wasn't like, this was, 2017, I can't remember, but there was no do not disturb. Like it was, you just turn your phone off. And so it was a fumbling moment of like me turning it on and then like trying to remember my passcode and then punching it, and I can't even remember what the conversation was in between. I think Heather saved it because she sneezed, and the president goes, "Oh, bless you." This is so funny. And as I'm fumbling, I just remember this conversation. I'm turning my phone on, and he said, "Are you sick?" And she said, "No, it's all the dogwoods here in DC." And he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And he started laughing. And I just remember this moment where my wife made the president of the United States laugh. And I was like, what is happening? And then finally, yes, I was able to turn my phone on. And, the conversation was 30 seconds, and he was very gracious to my dad, and my dad was floored. He that was the greatest moment of his entire life, and I couldn't believe he did that. Like I couldn't believe he saw me like that, and he not only saw me, but he took a step farther to see me even deeper. It was just, people can disagree with policies and all sorts of things, but man, what a incredible human of a president he was, and I got to see it firsthand. It was crazy.
what is it you say in How to Human, or maybe it's an interview I saw, you said, because you just kind of mentioned it, you said, he saw me.
Yeah.
And there's a 3-sentence phrase that you use where you say, be human.
Be human. Yep.
See humans.
Yes.
And what's the third one?
Free humans.
So in that see humans,
yeah,
is it one of those moments where it kind of turned around on you and you just felt like, I'm fully being seen, fully being like...
Oh, yeah. You know, especially being seen by somebody that would have no reason to see you. That was somebody that you would never, you know, in 1,000 years think would see you that deeply. Know that, you know, as I share my story of my immigrant father, he's like, well, let's let him feel seen as well. And so, yeah, I mean, this was way before I wrote How to Human, way before I kind of came up with the be human, see humans, free humans thing. But yeah, I mean, it was a pivotal moment for me of like, wow, like this, I wonder if I can do this for other people. I wonder if I can see people that aren't expecting it and how that maybe could, you know, transform their lives. And so, yeah, it was crazy.
Well, it's funny you use the word pivotal because you also said that this was like a big shift. This whole situation, being at the White House, was a shift for you because, you know, us being raised, growing and working even in evangelical spaces.
Yeah.
You posted a video, and I actually remember the video. If you want to see Carlos in a suit, find this video. Right. You're on a stool. Obama's head's in every shot. Because he's right here, and you're leading. I actually even remember you were leading "What Can Wash Away My Sin?" I believe.
Yes, and Heather was secretly filming that video when she wasn't supposed to. So that was my wife with my phone that was supposed to be off, shooting that video.
What would we do? What would we do without our wives, man?
I know.
So the shift happens when you post this video and you receive significant backlash.
Oh my gosh!
You go into this when you talk about with Tim.
Yeah.
But then you start to, because of that backlash you receive, you described how you started to begin to see that the ideals and rhetoric being like celebrated by people in evangelical spaces was hard for you, especially during the 2016 election. And you wrote in 2017, "Kill the Spider."
Right. Yep.
Quick pause, because I just want to say that book changed my life.
Wow.
If you have not read "Kill the Spider," read it. The whole idea of us just whipping away cobwebs and not actually addressing, and I want to talk about this a little bit later, but like not actually addressing the spider that's making those things happen. Right. Incredible. So you begin to see yourself, as you're seeing all the things happening around you, you begin to see yourself as, you said, basically the safe black guy. Totally. And that's what paid your bills. You were the safe black guy in churches.
Yep.
And you said, to quote you again, you said that was fine until 2020.
Right.
Because this is where we all witnessed the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. And you said, I can't stay halfway anymore. And you post, as you described it, again, the most non-confrontational vanilla video.
Yes.
And you have a bit of a following of about 30-some thousand followers. You wake up the next day, and because of that video, they're
gone.
10,000 of them are gone.
Yeah.
Again, massive backlash, and evangelical churches stop asking you, in large, to stop asking you to come share with them.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of where we find ourselves now, where you have lived this life, you know, worship leader, songwriter, speaker in churches, and now you're seeing yourself in the social justice space. And I kind of just want to ask, like, I know this is a really big question, but like, how are you doing with that? Where are you at? What are you excited about? When you hear that crazy story of how you've come to this place, and you're still a lover of Jesus, but you're also, you know, walking with people. How are you doing? What are you excited about? And what are you looking forward to?
Yeah. You know, I think when I you know, look at where I'm at right now, what I'm doing, you know, kind of as my job, it's not where I thought I would be. Obviously, you know, when I was the safe black guy that would come into evangelical spaces, and you know, I think I was doing good work. I mean, at that point I was talking about "Kill the Spider," which was very transformational for a lot of people. And so I kind of lay out where I'm at right now as like, I'm still kind of on a journey as to, I mean, even this morning, my wife looked at me and goes, "What are you doing? Like who do you want to be? Like where's this all going?" Yeah, it's so I'm kind of still in this space of like, Lord, like, you know, what is it? You know, a lot of the people that followed me in the early days of my social media life and when I was just kind of speaking in churches, you know, a lot of them have left, but I'm still like a Jesus Christ, Holy Spirit filled Christ follower that believes in this crazy story about a man that was fully God and resurrected, was murdered and resurrected. And then, you know, and so like, I still have a lot of Christians that follow me, but I definitely have a bigger swath of non-Christians that follow me too. And so I'm speaking in a way that I'm more cognizant of. I have a wider net than I've ever had before, as far as like I'm not even net, a wider part of the big part of my funnel that I've ever had before. And so there's just a lot of people that believe differently than me, that somehow feel like I'm a safe place to land when, you know, the amount of DMs I get, like, "Carlos, I don't agree with, you know, I don't agree with you, but I can't leave. And you're one of the only places that I'm still hanging out with people that I listen to every day that I don't necessarily agree with, because you do it in a way that is accessible for me." And so, you know, I'm excited about the question my wife asked me this morning. What am I doing? Like what am I doing? How am I how am I entering and walking around this space that I'm in? Where is the next space that I'm going to walk to? There's some of me that does miss, you know, primarily speaking to Christ followers, and, you know, week after week, there is a little bit of that I miss, but I am at the same time equally enjoying, you know, living in this corporate space that I'm in. When I say corporate space, you know, I'm in, you know, I'm speaking to like a bunch of city planners in 2 weeks, right? Like I'm taking the message of Jesus and pulling the scripture out of it and applying them as life principles to these people that desperately want it. And then, so, you know, at my book table, I'm able to dive a little deeper into when they're like, there's something different about what you're talking about. What is it? You know? And so, like, it's like I'm able to talk to people that are way farther away from what I believe than I ever did when I was in the local church on a weekly basis. And so, you know, it's cool. It's different. I don't know what it's going to look like even in a year from now. I mean, I know that, you know, I'm releasing a project later this fall of 2024 that is unlike anything I've ever done before, that is going to, I think, speak to an even wider, you know, wide part of the funnel than I've ever spoken to before. And so, like, I'm continually trying to make me more accessible to more people, while still, when you get to the point of everything I believe, it's still the blood of the cross and the power of the resurrection. So, you know, we start wide, and, you know, as wounded as the evangelical church has wounded me, as much as I've seen racism in the church in America, as much as all these things, I still believe in the church. I still believe in the power of this idea that was not our idea. It was Jesus's idea. And so, like, I'm like, well, I know we've jacked it up and screwed it up, but I'm still on board. And so who knows, man? It is kind of a crapshoot in my head, but I'm having a blast trying different things and speaking to people I never would have been able to speak to had all of those things never happened.
I love how you said how we've screwed it up, because I've often had that same thought as well. Like, as much as I get frustrated at the current state of whatever, I'm part of it.
Absolutely.
And I think that takes a lot of ownership. And, you know, also to your point about being a safe person, being a safe space. You know, you used to say I was the safe black guy. Now you're this safe space where you're welcoming in everyone. That brings me to like a dehumanization. You talk a lot about that. And I heard you say in an interview, it takes, because I do my homework, Carlos. You see
good.
See
this
what I'm
is
doing
great.
over here?
This is so good, Patrick.
Just thank you for your affirmation. No.
Yeah.
You said it takes risks to stand up for what you believe in, but also not dehumanize someone that does not believe the same way you do. So I've seen you walk this out, even in what you just described, and I follow you on all the social media things. You've given interviews in plenty of places where you don't align with the main message of that place, or they don't align with your message,
Right.
But when it comes to equality or racism, what have you, but you still are able to create common ground. So walk with me on this, to use some of your language. Like, how do you navigate those situations where you're being interviewed by someone whose values not only differ from yours, but whose beliefs and rhetoric are potentially harmful? How do you walk with a person like that?
Yeah, I always approach those situations with two kind of goals in mind. The first one is approaching it knowing that no matter how dehumanizing this person is, no matter how horrible their rhetoric is, or no matter how different our beliefs are, there will still be something that we agree on. And
that's right.
So like, you gotta go in knowing that there is something that we agree on. The second thing.
Can I interrupt really quick?
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sure.
I think to that point, I think so many people have made. I think what you're saying and what I've experienced is so many people have made up their mind before the conversation starts.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
that's human, and I understand that, because we all have trauma that we are working through ourselves, based on a lot of rhetoric that people are saying, and based on the way people have treated us. And so, like, yes, this is all, this is something I have to try to do. This isn't just like robotic, as every single time I'm not going to go in and want to punch someone in the face, right? Like this is something that I do have to like go in with, but I do feel like I am kind of built for it, like if I look at the way I respond to situations, there is something, I think, intrinsically in me that is built for this season of divisiveness, this season of kind of where we find ourselves. And so, somebody kind of referred to me as like the Black Mr. Rogers for adults, I was like, oh wow, like, is that an insult? Or no, I think they're kind of right. That needs to go in the bio.
It needs to go in the bio.
It's like Carlos, you're helping us all in a very kind, gracious way talk about hard things without triggering all these things. So whatever, Mr. Rogers for adults walks in looking for a commonality with whoever it is I'm going to have that conversation with.
I think you just gave me the name of the podcast.
Yes.
Interview with Carlos Whittaker, the Black Mr. Rogers.
The Black Mr. Rogers. Boom. Let's go. Put it on a business card. Yeah. Second thing I do is I always, when I'm walking into a conversation like this, I always have to realize that the person with whom I'm going to be speaking to that is the dehumanizer, or that has a problem with rhetoric that dehumanizes people, all of that is coming from a point of pain in their life. Like all of this is coming from, they have been wounded in some way, shape, or form to need to respond this way, and to need to. So I think what's helpful is that, because I wrote this book, Kill the Spider, I'm always looking at people like, oh, they're speaking from their cobwebs. They're speaking from medicating behaviors. That is, all they're doing is trying to comfort a wound. All they're doing is trying to comfort something that hurts them. And so when I come into a conversation knowing that this person's wounded, this person is speaking from trauma, this person there is something really painful and real in their life that is causing them to speak this way. Now it's like I can so quickly get past their words, so quickly get past their ideas, and I try to drill straight to their heart. And they don't even know what to do. When I go there, when I'm not triggered by their language, when I'm not offended, and when I'm like, you know what, like, I can see how you think that. I actually, thanks for explaining that to me. Like, I can understand why you would think that. Now, I don't think that, but I can, because of how you explain it. And they're like, well, you can, and it's because I'm looking past their behavior into the wound, right? And so I go in looking at the person as they're in pain. And then the second thing I do is I try to find a commonality, that when I find that commonality within our conversation, I think that at that point they allow me to get to their pain a little bit better. So like, I kind of do view everything as ministry for me. I'm like, man, like, I can't wait to talk to people that think I'm nuts or vehemently disagree with me, because the conversation quickly leaves our point of discontention and quickly arrives at a point of me just trying to help them, and yeah, that's why I make a lot of friends with people that before the conversation considered me an enemy.
Okay, let's talk about making friends really quickly. I want this. I want to ask you just this quickly, because I also want to address something you just said. But as you grew into this kind of new place you find yourself in, where you said your net's way wider.
Yeah.
You've also had you're sharing your thoughts, and then all of a sudden Kim Kardashian is reposting.
There's been moments, yes.
You've had massive viral moments in your life.
Yep.
I mean, everyone brings this up. Single ladies.
Absolutely.
I mean, and if I actually don't want to even say it, leave the podcast and Google Carlos Whittaker, single ladies, and prepare for your life to be changed. How do you remain grounded when you're bursting your heart open to grow into these new spaces, but then all of a sudden you're getting, for lack of a better term, like people with clout are going, yes. Right. Have you had to be like, wait? Have you had to have like, not to get too like Christianese, but have you had to like check your pride or hold yourself accountable or be like, wait, remember that, or maybe to use your language, Carlos, remember, be human, just be human.
Yes,
like what has that been like for you?
It's not difficult because of the family members that I have to live with on a daily basis. My wife is in no way, shape, or form impressed with me. And so, if there has ever been a moment of me feeling higher and mightier than me, she will ground me very, very quickly. And I think I got friends that I've chosen to surround myself with as well that have helped me with that. Now I say that all saying that prior to maybe 2014, when I had my kill the spider moment, I think that if anything that I'm experiencing now on the grounds of like having clout in front of people that, that have way more clout than me, I probably would have let it go to my head. Had I been still living in believing these lies, right? Believing before I killed my spider. But now, I just feel like the Lord gives and takes away. And he's taken a lot away, to be honest with you, from me. He's given me a whole lot as well. And so, I just have been, I just turned 50. I've experienced a lot of pain in my life to where I'm just not impressed with myself anymore. Like I just, like God may give me some words that people find uplifting and powerful, and maybe, Carlos, that changed my life. But I also, because of this thing called social media, I'll post a reel that my aunt and my grandpa maybe liked, and nobody else thinks that what I had to say is even remotely interesting. And so, the longer you do what I do, I think the less impressed you get with yourself, and and having a spouse or a partner that isn't as impressed with you as you are is super helpful. And so I also stay grounded in I am still and I do this on purpose at my local church. I have never one time spoken on that stage. Like I've never given a sermon. I run camera 5 at my church, The Belonging. That's what I do. And so I make sure that I'm volunteering, that I am not always in a position where I'm the one communicating life-changing things to people, that I am actually the one holding the camera, aiming it at somebody else that is going to impact my life. And so, just doing things like that, I think is also really helpful. And so, it's a long way to answer your question, but it isn't something that I struggle with near as much as I did, a decade ago.
Now, The Belonging, is that a new, like a small church plant?
Tiny little church plant here in Nashville, Tennessee. No, actually this, as at the point of this recording this weekend, we're celebrating 10 years as a church. So, it's still 10 years old. I mean, it's still pretty young for a church, and it's really changed my family's life, which I think is, in my conversation with Tim, I was talking about how, I've had a problem with evangelical megachurches in America, like that. There's a lot of wounding that has happened, and yet here I am in one. Here I am in one that is shiny and sparkly, and the most beautiful singers in Nashville stand on our stage, and like with the most incredible voices, and it's like, but it's just, I just tell people like there's a sense that the most important thing, at least, this is what I look for in a church. The most important thing isn't the pastor's Instagram or what they're wearing or whatever. It is the presence of God. And that's kind of what we're kind of chasing after every single week. And that I've seen it change my family's life, my kids' life, my marriage. And so, yeah, I'm super grateful to be planted in this church.
That's awesome, man. As a church planter, like that speaks a ton of life to me. And, I'm currently recording this in my office. Hopefully you can hear through this microphone downstairs, one of our amazing audio engineers tuning up our system. Maybe we'll hear some belonging.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
It's better than it's actually better than when I record and we do like kids camps downstairs. And it's just,
sure. Yeah. Well, so, I can't hear any of that. I just hear your voice. So, your
wonderful.
Your filter, whatever's happening on the mic is working.
Hey guys, we're going to get right back to it in a second, but we have to just take a second to talk to our sponsor today, which is me, because I don't have any sponsors. My name is Patrick and I am many things. I'm a husband, a dad, a New Yorker, and a content creator who is passionate about telling stories. And if you are someone who's looking to get into the content creation game, well, you are in the right place. Maybe it's time for you to start your podcast, or you want to create amazing YouTube videos, or you're a gamer who wants to live stream your sessions, or you're looking to create an amazing, cost-effective setup that looks like this. Do not leave today without following me on Instagram, subscribing to my YouTube channel, and checking out all the links in the description, because I would love to help you get to where you want to go as a content creator. With that said, let's get back to the content. Thanks so much for being with me today. Well, let's go back to your books, because you mentioned some things about you experienced some pain, and I kind of wanted to just hear your thoughts on this, because you've written, like I said earlier, some incredible stuff that's really spoken to me, like Inner Wild. We talked about how to human moment maker, Kill the Spider, amazing stuff. And you talk all through, especially through Kill the Spider, you talk about your journey with some pretty with pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've also mentioned you're a massive believer in therapy. Me too. I love that. And how you also make the argument, or our argument's the wrong word. You said that modern medicine and therapy will help you find and corner the spider, the deepest issues that you struggle with, but only the power of Jesus can truly break that stuff off. And it's similar to something a guest I had on a previous episode said, and I'm paraphrasing him a bit, but he's talking about mental health, and he said, the world will tell you that medicine can solve all your issues. The church will tell you that Jesus will solve all of your issues. And then he said, I don't think for me either is necessarily true. He said, I fully believe in the saving power of Jesus, but I have not yet been fully healed from my mental health struggles. If my anxiety is at a 9, I find it extremely difficult to connect with Jesus. However, if my meds bring me to a 3, I'm able to slow down enough to connect with Jesus. Do you feel like, would you say a similar thing, or can you actually unpack, not necessarily your pain specifics, but like, can you unpack that idea as it relates to what you've written and what you've shared about what you've gone through?
Yeah, I love what he said. I used to say, because I used to talk about my anxiety. That was like maybe one of the things I talked about the most online or in my blog or, socials, where, I was struggling massively. Like it was a 9 or a 10, like panic attacks. I couldn't leave the house. And I used to say, God has given me enough strength to deal with my anxiety. And I believed that. And I still believe that God gives us strength to deal with these things. Now here's where my perspective has shifted a little bit, which is maybe what you hear when I say some of these things about medicine and about, that one way I say it is our help is in the natural. So like the natural is very helpful, the therapy, medicine, all these things. But our hope is in the supernatural. So that's how I like to approach really anything in life that we need hope in. Medicine, therapy, doctors, all these things are very helpful, and I'm so grateful for them. But once I start hope, because I started to hope in those things, and you know what happened? Like I started to hope in my Paxil, and my 20 milligrams stopped working. Well, suddenly my hope is ruined, and I had to go to 40. And then if I put it's not very hopeful, but it is helpful. But my hope needs to be in the supernatural, right? And so this is where a lot of people, honestly, a lot of, when I started speaking this way, a lot of like therapy and people that mental illness has affected their life in drastic ways. I actually even to say this is going to maybe trigger some people, but I feel like I have been completely healed of my anxiety and depression. Like completely, I'm telling you, bro, like I went from, and I did this thing called heart sync, which is a form of, and I loved it because it's a form of inner healing, but it brings psychology into it. So, there's a lot of times there's the therapy camp and then the prayer camp, and they kind of butt heads because the therapy's camp, like, this is the way that you find healing. The prayer camp's like, no, this is the way that you find healing. And I happen to find this modality that really brings both of them together called heart sync. So I went through this process for maybe 6 sessions, and this is in my book, Inner Wild, where after, I'll just never forget, like I was struck, it was like heart palpitations every day, all day long. I'm talking about, I couldn't go a minute without my heart skipping a beat. And it was debilitating for, a year and a half of my life when my anxiety was at the peak. I'm in this inner healing heart sync, session with John Elam here in Nashville, Tennessee, who is the practitioner that I went to. And bro, I prayed, it was supernaturally, like I'm praying, like he's having me visualize and role play. Jesus is in a chair and yada, yada. And I'm my Carlos little self and, all this psychobabble talk. And so like, I'm talking to myself and so like, but I look at Jesus and I ask him to specifically to heal my heart palpitations. And like in his office, as they're happening every minute, they stopped. And I was like, okay, whatever, that could be coincidence. And bro, they never came back. And so like I tell people, and then honestly, like my anxiety, like panic attacks, all of those things disappeared. And I kept waiting for them to return. So because I didn't want to say I was healed, because what happens if you say you're healed, what is you're setting, what we do as humans, we're setting ourselves up for a crisis of faith when it returns, right? Like, so we don't want to say it, because if you say it, what if it happens again? What if it comes back? Well, man, I just kind of got to the point where I didn't want to live that way. Like I felt like I was healed. And so I started declaring it. I started saying, guys, I'm healed of my anxiety. Well, when I said that, a lot of the people that followed me at the time that were, not healed really took offense to me saying I was healed. And they're like, well, Carlos, I mean, I'm glad that worked out for you, but it's just not my story. And so again, I was like, not everybody will find full healing on this side of the veil of between heaven and earth. Not everyone will. But just because not everyone will, why not go for it? Like why not at least believe that it can happen? So that's the difference. The difference for me is knowing that not everybody will find physical or mental or emotional healing on this side, but that it still is possible. And so if it is possible, I'm not going to stop chasing it, right? So like, another example, my father lives across the street from me. He's battling dementia, like the late stages of dementia. And so everything is going to tell me that my dad is going to continue to progress and to go down. I mean, literally the doctors, even the stages that he's in, like even myself, like I know what's next. Like he's not going to be able to swallow, and then we're going to have to do hospice. And like, this is just what, but guess what? Last night when I went to my parents' house, like I put my hand on my dad's head, even though like I know what's coming in my heart. And I prayed for complete and total healing over his brain. I prayed that when he wakes up this morning, he could say my mom's name. He could remember. I'm still hoping in the supernatural, even though the natural is what I'm seeing on a daily basis. And so that's just it. I want people to not ever give up hope that crazy stuff can happen. And so I guess that was a really long answer to your question of where I find myself in those spaces. Friends and family have seen supernatural healing happen in my life. I've seen it happen in other people's life. It's not happening in my dad's life, but I'm not going to give up hope that it can. And so a lot of people think that's ignorant, that's stupid, that's crazy. But man, it builds my faith when I believe that way. And so, I don't even know if I answered your question, but that's kind of like my unpacking of what that is.
I wish your answer was longer, because I'm afraid you're getting emotional, man. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
We have a lot of people in our church that are, for some reason, they're just really, we're not a large church. They're just battling infertility.
Yeah.
And I completely feel you on, you don't know when to celebrate.
Right.
Because there's so many people who can't.
Right. Totally.
And there's the very ignorant, which I have been a part of,
Yeah.
Just like, well, we should always just be happy all the time, and that's just not life.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
Jesus secluded himself constantly. Jesus constantly said, yeah, and I created boundaries where he said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Or, and I just think that, actually, while you were answering that question halfway through, I wanted to be like, interrupt you and say, so what's this guy's number? What chair do we sit in? And then secondly, I was just, I completely resonate with you on believing, a lot of churchy people would say the already but not yet kind of.
Right.
And, you mentioned this, like the thinness between heaven and earth.
Yeah.
And it's like our minds and hearts are melded, because it just leads me right into this question I wanted to ask you. Again, I heard an interview where you said our role, speaking of heaven and earth and what we believe, like you said our role as Christians is not to wait for heaven, but to bring heaven to earth.
Yeah.
And in your book, How to Human, like we were talking about earlier, you encouraged anyone reading to be human, see humans, and free humans, like we were talking about. And there's a lot there, but how do you explain, just, not that you or I know everything, but like, how would you explain bringing heaven to earth, but also seeing people for where they're at? I mean, we have, how do you explain those working together? I mean, we have the example of Jesus, the book says, fully God, fully man, living in that tension. But give me the Cliff Notes, like in your own words, like how do we live fully as humans while bringing heaven to earth? Yeah.
I think that is why it's so important to just kind of exist in the Gospels for me every day. I read all parts of the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, but I love every single day I make sure to read what it looked like for heaven to be walking around on earth, right? So that is Jesus who currently sits at the right hand of God in heaven is what my Bible teaches me. Yet he was breathing the same air that I'm breathing, doing the things that I'm hoping to be doing. So heaven on earth, bringing heaven on earth to me is literally mimicking Jesus, copying and pasting what he did in his life to my life. And so that's really what it looks like. It's not as, crazy, super charismatic as people may think. Carlos is bringing, there's angel feathers and dust falling from the heavens. No, what it looks like for me is like, I mean, sure, maybe somebody's got some angel dust somewhere. I don't know. But what I have is an example, like in the Bible, of what it looks like to bring heaven to earth. And that is to be the hands and feet of Jesus. That we're called to be the hands and feet of Jesus. If we're being the hands and feet of Jesus, then we are bringing heaven to earth. And so on the whole see humans, free humans piece, like that is the goal every single day. Like how can you be the hands and feet of Jesus to everybody, people that you love and people that you can't stand? And so I have to practice this every single, I don't get it right all the time, but like we literally have an example of what that looks like in the life of Jesus. And, a lot of people, just yesterday, I uploaded a video explaining my don't stand on issues, walk with people statement, which is something that I say a lot. And I felt like it needed a little bit of unpacking because people either hate it when I say that or they love it when I say that. And so I was like, let me talk to the people that don't understand this. All I'm saying is bringing heaven to earth. That's what not standing on issues but walking with people is. If you're a Christian, the amount of people that DM me saying, if more Christians would do this, I wouldn't be so triggered by the word Christian. I wouldn't be so, and I'm like, man, how many Christians are doing the opposite of bringing heaven to earth? How many Christians are actually repelling people from heaven because of how they're acting? And so, I just think that empathy, compassion, inclusion, all of these things that people may feel like are weak things, like, oh, if he's that's weakness. You're not standing strong for what you believe in. I just think bringing heaven to earth looks a lot gentler than the war that a lot of evangelical spaces want us to believe we're in. Listen. If evangelicals are in America are thinking heaven to earth looks something like winning a culture war, right? Like we look at that. Can I let everyone know that freaking ship has left the dock. There is nothing you're going to do that is going to somehow recover America to whatever your morality looks like. That is not a war you're going to win. The Bible literally tells me that is not a war we're going to win. So you know what, like, what we need to be doing instead of being like this, like, we're charging in with our swords and our shields, and we're going to crush the heads of the enemy. Can I tell you something? The heads of the enemy that you are calling the enemy are human beings that are made in the image of God. And instead of going to crush the heads of humans, why don't you show the humans whose heads you're trying to crush what the head and the face of Jesus looks like, and allow them to be like, oh, you know, that's something that I actually want. Those are children made in the image of God. And so, I don't know, man. I maybe I'm a freaking Mennonite at heart or Amish or something, but I just feel like we've got this thing wrong, and to bring heaven to earth looks a lot more like peacemaking and being the hands and feet of Jesus.
Well, Carlos Whittaker, who has famously said, he doesn't speak in as many churches anymore, is now preaching sermons on this podcast.
Yeah, that was an accident.
That was. Well, I'm a little messed up over here. You know, we're just gonna have to power through. But you said I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there that I hope someone picks up and creates episodes 2, 3, and 4
Sure.
of. But you mentioned standing on issues. I love this phrase. I'm one of the ones that loves this phrase that you say. Don't stand on issues, walk with people.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to ask you, give me an example. Like,
Sure.
What's something in the recent year, month, week where you, Carlos,
Yes.
have had to actively say, I'm not gonna fight with this person. I'm not going to reject this person. I'm going to walk with this person and with them in whatever they're experiencing in life.
Yeah. I think here in Tennessee, I'm having to do this every day when it comes to gun reform. So, like I have friends who, well, one friend now, as of a few months ago, who's become a friend, whose daughter was killed in our Covenant School massacre shooting. And so like I've gotten to know Katie Dickhouse, and her beautiful daughter Evelyn was killed. And I've got a lot of friends whose kids went there that were survivors. And so I also have a lot of, so I'm obviously I am not obviously, but I am all for common sense gun reform in the state of Tennessee. Now I've got a lot of friends that are against it, like against it. And it has taken a lot of work for me to walk with them, and again, walking with them is really trying to understand. And I guess the part for me that was the hardest is not trying to change their minds. Like literally, like I've had numerous lunches and coffees with friends where I just said, okay, so tell me the way you're gonna solve this, and to let them unpack it without me going, but yeah, like just to let it flow and let it happen. And so that's something that has taken a lot of work for me, walking with people that don't seem in my head to care about Katie and to care about what she has gone through, and to care that we really don't want any other kids to have to, or families to have to go through this, losing children. So that's one thing. Now, let me even go a step farther, and I talk about this in my book, How to Human. Sometimes what it does is you have to be open to actually even changing your mind. Like you actually have to not only approach the conversation to just let them feel heard, because that's you can do that and not be willing to have anything shift in your heart. But what happens is what's even more risky is going in a conversation going like, you know what, God, if there's a shift that needs to happen in my heart listening to what they have to say, shift it, like begin to shift it. And so I go back to 2020, Breonna Taylor, and I am like all over Twitter being like, end search warrants, no knock warrants. And I'm like, all these things. Well, and I tell the story in my book, How to Human. I am like saying no knock warrants need to be abolished because of everything that I've learned. Well, I have a friend of mine that is a SWAT team officer in Los Angeles who I guess I never realized he's a close friend of mine, that he serves no-knock warrants. And so I had a conversation with him. We had a very hard year that year, but we ended up in a conversation where I was like, I'm just going to listen to understand.
You and him had a hard year?
Yes, me and him had a hard year.
Because of there was tension.
Yes, because of what he did for his line of work, what I was saying on the internet, and him not, feeling seen by me. And so what it turned into was it humanized him in the conversation, because this was as simple as the conversation went. Carlos, do you love me? I was like, yeah. Do you love my wife? Yeah. Do you love my 2 kids? Absolutely. I've known them their whole life. So I need to let you know, every night when I leave at 1 a.m., if we're called for whatever, I kiss them all goodbye, and my wife Lori prays that I'll come back in the morning alive. The reason why is because I have to go to very bad guys' houses, and those bad guys are waiting on the other side of the door. If I knock, they're going to take their shotgun and they're going to pump 15 shells through the door, quite possibly into my head or my chest. But if I don't knock, then I'll be able to go in and surprise them, and I won't die, and we'll get to arrest them. Do you want me to knock, is what he asked. And I was like, oh, no. Okay, I don't want you to knock. Okay, but everyone else has to knock, right? So suddenly what happens is like it humanizes it. And what began to happen in me is I actually began to have a shift in my perspective and a shift in my opinion. And whereas it didn't shift all the way to like, okay, every police officer can knock now, but suddenly like things began to shift in my perspective. Why? Because I walked with people. I walked with people in a way that my heart was open to understanding something different. And it was a lot more nuanced of a conversation than I was letting it be. So, those are a couple examples as to what that looks like.
Dude, I just want to you are you're a phenomenal writer, but the stuff you share is like the stories you tell aren't just stories. I'm pausing here to very unprofessionally just thank you for. I'm a mess, man. It's because it's hard stuff, and I laugh. That story is not a funny story, but I laughed because you said when he says, "Do you want me to knock?" and you're like, "Well, no, not you." And I feel myself in that moment, just and I'm not trying to be like, look. I too find myself being a safe person at times, and I battle in my mind to not just to agree with everybody. I just want everybody to feel loved. But the way so you laid it out perfectly to have an opinion, but to walk alongside someone. And by the way, kudos to him as well. For not giving you the finger and being like, no, I've seen your post, but to say, hey, let's talk about it. Yeah, man. Thank you. That was a phenomenal example. And I do want to say, I know you've also done some fundraising for. I mean, in the past, I would say, what would you say, 2 to 3 years? Yeah, I think it kind of happened on accident. Yep. There was Tony.
That was even after a few other times, but Tony was the one that kind of went viral.
Yeah, but there have been these moments where when you talk about gun violence, especially in schools, you have been someone who's raised money for that. You've raised money for individuals, even just randos that you're just like, the Waffle House ladies that you were just like, hey, Insta Familia, which is what you call your crew. You're like, let's give to these people. What? Obviously, that's just been like great. Is there anything you'd like to plug on that, and can you just? Did that just kind of happen, or was that something like, what, I've got an idea that I want to try out?
Yeah, it actually happened for my family. We went through a really hard time, 2021. It was like the worst week ever. Dog died, house flooded, Heather broke her wrist. It was just this horrible week. And there was a friend of mine on the internet that did like this giving blitz for me and my family. And I was like, what? No, I can pay my own bills, like I don't need somebody to help. And they literally, her followers like wiped out all of our debt like in 24 hours. So like I was the recipient of this happening. And there was a moment where somebody, was it 2022, maybe early, where somebody said, hey, you have a follower that is having all these seizures and they're trying to get a seizure alert dog. their GoFundMe has been up for 62 days and they have $11,000 and they need 30. And I just remember thinking, well, I wonder if I just post it, what would happen? So I just remember being like, hey, what do you think we can help? I remember thinking maybe we can get $5,000. We can help get the seizure alert dog. It's $20,000 more dollars, whatever. So I posted it. I think 10 minutes later, she had the seizure alert dog. And I just remember being like, wait a second. $20,000 just hit this girl's GoFundMe in 10 minutes. And I was like, what am I sitting on here? Like, who are these? I accidentally just became a philanthropist. Like, this wasn't even on purpose. Like, what's happening? And then I did it again and again, and the money kept coming. And so like, yeah, it's over 2 years. We've raised $1.7 million in Venmo just to kind of spread around to strangers. It's been crazy. And so, yeah, that's one of the things that I love to do. And that's one of the things that, again, gives people that vehemently disagree with each other a commonality that they can root for together. And that's why it works, is like nobody asks me before I fundraise for Tony, the piano player, or whatever, hey, can you tell me who we voted for before I drop some money into the Venmo account? Like, nobody does that, right? Of course not, because people have this, everybody, whether you're Republican or Democrat, I believe everyone's created in the image of God, and we all have this reflex of rescue inside of us. And all I'm doing is bringing those reflexes together and letting everybody jump on board. And people want to give, and so that's been a fun part of my journey the last few years.
It's been fun for all of us, like, to watch and to give and to participate and to feel like you're part of something. And just the amount of people that I've just said, I have the privilege of interviewing Carlos Whittaker, and they're just like, oh my gosh, did you see his video? And I'm just like, yes, of course. I actually met him and had a Jameson years ago. It's not a big deal. I mean, I may have dropped some ideas as well. I don't know, whatever. No, but when it comes to the Insta Familia and sharing those things, content creation has always been a part of your life. Yeah. I remember when we met, the first thing I ever heard you say publicly to a small group of churchy people at a very small conference was, my name is Carlos and I have a blog.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, now that you kind of have a team of people like working with you, and you're moving around a lot, and you're not just kind of like in one location, kind of like, side hustling on a blog.
Sure. Is
content creation for you? Because I love content. I don't think it's going anywhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the easiest ways to train, equip, share, inspire, obviously, is like through some sort of viral post that blesses someone else's life. Is content creation for you, since we are on this podcast, is it an intentional thing? Is it something you've had to learn about? Have you failed your way through it? Is it something that you even care about? Is it a passion, or is it something that just kind of is just a part of what you do?
Yeah, no, I've always been a storyteller. And so like even before blogs were blogs, when Heather and I were getting married in the year 2000, I started a website called carlosandheather.com. And literally I had to hard code this website. This was before blogs. This was, and I would write a journal entry, hard code in HTML, a journal entry every single day. And I would write, the story of our day. And I figured out a way to like upload a photo to what it was. And Heather was always like, what are you doing every single night? And I was like, I just love this. Like, my mom can read this, and it's so cool. And, and I look back at my life, and I've always had a camera in my hand, and I've always been documenting. And we went on a trip in 1998. I went on a trip with, it was with Heather. We were dating, and I had a camcorder, and I remember coming home, and I had the little bubble iMac. Remember the little bubble with the little head that would kind of bop around? And I remember putting like the mini DVs into this thing and making a DVD, like in iMovie, like making a thing just so that I could like let my friends see it. And there was no internet to upload it to. Like, it was just, gotta watch this video I made. So I've always been doing that. I've always been documenting. And so like, it really is kind of like breathing for me. Like, it's something that I do. I love it. I love telling stories, like I love, fly fishing. Fly fishing is something that I love to do. Like, it's this cathartic release. Making videos and stories, horizontally or vertically is kind of tugging on the same parts of my heart. So yeah, I love to do it. I think I'll always do it. I had the conversation the other day with my manager. I have a management team now, which is so weird, but we're kind of planning out the year and looking, and I was like, I'm 50. Like, am I going to be talking to my phone when I'm 70? Like, is this still going to be like, am I going to be pouring a cup of coffee going like, buenos dias, Insta Familia?
Nope, you're going to have one of those headsets, man. Vision
totally,
Pro. There's going to be no more phones. Didn't you hear about this?
Totally. So, but and she's like, yes, it's who you are. Like you're a storyteller. Like it's just who you are. And so, I love it, man. I don't think you're right. I don't think it's going anywhere. It may look different. It may not be Instagram. It may be something else. But I think it's always going to be there. And I think people will always want to consume and to learn, right? And we're seeing differences happening even in ministry context, right? Like people aren't coming to church services like they used to because they can listen to you on their phone. There's a lot of things that are going to be shifting that I'm excited about. And so yeah, like I'm 50 now, and I'm watching my daughters TikTok, and I'm watching them do things that I don't understand. And I don't know what it means or whatever, but I am always going to be sharing a story, creating content, putting it out there for people that get that are feeling and wanting to do and march towards the same direction that I'm wanting to march in.
Well, okay. Again, we're just on the same page. I only have a couple more questions for you, but I did want to ask you. You mentioned your kids.
Yeah.
I have a 16-year-old, almost 12-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Big every time I mention the 3-year-old, everybody's like,
"What?" Sure.
It's crazy stuff. We're all out here just making memories. 16-year-old, first real relationship. He's in his first real relationship. So you have a daughter who's engaged.
Yeah. She's getting married.
I need you in the next minute and a half to give me all of your advice on children and relationships. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and get started. The clock is on.
Oh yeah, no. I make sure
How
that
are you
you're
navigating that.
Yeah. Make sure you're partnering with a spouse that is better at you at relationships with your kids. And the thing that I always tell people, which is it's so silly, but it's just so true. Like, try with everything you can to create a home that is safe for your kids' friends. And what we've realized is that our kids, even though that they think we're not cool and they want to go somewhere else, they don't want to be with us, their friends want to be with us. And so since their friends want to be with us, suddenly like they want to be with us. And we turned into a few years ago, the house where I'd walk in I'd come home from a trip, and I just remember one time, like, there was nobody else in my house. There was some like 17-year-old dude in my fridge, like opening my fridge, and I was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he's like, "Oh, hey, Mr. Carlos." And I was like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Oh, my name's Patrick." And I was like, "Cool." And I just kind of walked by him and went downstairs to the basement and being like, "Well, whoever this Patrick kid is feels safe enough to be in my house and be in my fridge." And you know what? I'm grateful for that. And so, just try to make your home that home. Be a safe place for your kids' friends. And then also when they start dating, be a safe place for the person that they're dating. Let them feel cared for. We tried with everything. With both of my daughters are one's engaged, one will be engaged within the next year, and both of the guys feel like I love them, and they don't feel like they're scared of me. And that's we kind of grew up listening, like, man, polish your gun when the guy comes walking in or whatever it is. And I'm just like,
so
what
dumb.
Horrible advice. What horrible advice. And so, yeah, man, just be a safe place for the community that your kids have, and things will work out.
Hey guys, we're going to get right back to it in a second, but we have to just take a second to talk to our sponsor today, which is me, because I don't have any sponsors. My name is Patrick, and I am many things. I'm a husband, a dad, a New Yorker, and a content creator who is passionate about telling stories. And if you are someone who's looking to get into the content creation game, well, you are in the right place. Maybe it's time for you to start your podcast, or you want to create amazing YouTube videos, or you're a gamer who wants to live stream your sessions, or you're looking to create an amazing, cost-effective setup that looks like this. do not leave today without following me on Instagram, subscribing to my YouTube channel, and checking out all the links in the description, because I would love to help you get to where you want to go as a content creator. With that said, let's get back to the content. Thanks so much for being with me today. I was half kidding when I asked that question, and then you then proceeded to describe my wife.
Yes,
my wife,
there it is.
Where she now has my kids' friends' favorite snacks.
Yeah.
In our cupboard.
Yep.
And when they come over, she's like, "Oh, I got the
Boom.
Prime,
That's it.
the Prime drink you like or whatever." I'm like, Meanwhile, I get home from church on Sunday exhausted.
Right.
And lovingly so. And I'm like, I'm going to take a nap. Our 3-year-old went down for a nap. I go down I'm in my like jammies, just all sorts of inappropriate. And I just open the door to 8 children on my couch in our tiny New York apartment, watching a football game or something. I'm like, okay, cool. I love this is happening. My son Declan, I'm like, Declan, maybe next time send me a text so I can have clothing on when your friends are over. But I love that. Like create a great space. For your kids' friends. Man, that's awesome. I am so thankful. I mean, talking through your story and talking through all this stuff has been so life-giving for me. This is not, there's no smoke in this, but like, I literally multiple times in some of your answers am just stirred with emotion because of how much some of those answers like just really touched my heart, especially some of the stuff about your dad. And I just enjoyed over the years, like just like everyone else, just following along with what you're doing. But before we go, hey, where can people can, follow you on all the social stuff? And I'd love for you to plug that, but can you also just share, like, what do you want people seeing that you're doing right now? Like if you were outside of yourself looking at Low Swit and all the stuff that you're doing, what's the thing that you're like, man, I really want people to see this?
Yeah, I think that I'm wanting people, especially in 2024, to see a follower of Jesus that is massively in love with Jesus, that is doing it. That's not being you could bleep that out if you want, but I want people to be like, okay, this is what it actually can look like. This is what it actually can look like if we are the hands and feet of Jesus, if we're walking with people that we vehemently disagree with. I want to be, let's go back to what somebody called me. Well, maybe you'll title it, I want to be Mr. Rogers-ish. I want to help people be kind to each other. I want to help people. And I'm not talking about like not standing up for things, right? Like I'm not talking about like not having opinions and wanting to like protect the oppressed, and all of those things take passion. They take us getting loud sometimes, right? Like I'm a Enneagram 9. I've got that 8 wing. I've got that justice arm in me that's like, no, like I will Mr. Rogers you to a point until I have to like replace Mr. Rogers with something a little bit more strong, right? And so, I just want people to see somebody that's trying to live out what I say every single day. And so, hopefully my Instagram is the place where people can do that. See me walking with people that I don't agree with. Little plug for September, but I did an experiment in late 2022 where that my book's coming out, where I wrote about this experiment where I spent 8 weeks offline living with people that are nothing like me. And so it's basically don't stand on issues, walk with people in practice as an experiment. And so like I've got something coming out that's going to help people see, oh, well, Carlos actually did it. This is kind of crazy. And so, so that's coming, and hopefully it's going to help a lot of people.
Well, man, I'm so thankful. And yes, swearing is absolutely allowed, but it's only biblical swearing.
Right.
So you have to say brood of vipers or
brood of vipers.
Something like that. No, that I so appreciate you sharing all that stuff. I'm really excited to see that project, and thank you for your time today. I know that it's going to be life-giving for a lot of people, but it was also really life-giving for me, so I appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for having me. Sorry it took me so long to make this happen.
Stop, no apologies allowed, man. You are giving. None. We are giving of our time to this thing we call podcasting, and man, I really hope we get to do it again one day.
Absolutely.
See, that's the trick. You say that at the end. The guest has to say absolutely.
That's right.
Locked in.
Right. Boom. Locked in. Signed, sealed,
Thank you so
delivered.
much, man. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am still so moved by the conversation that I got to have with Carlos, and I'm so glad you came along with me. Don't forget that all of the links you need can be found down in the description. Don't forget to subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram. I'm really active over there. And before you go, check out this video.